Dela's Voice has been made possible by the generosity of sponsors like you. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations on Dela's Voice. I want to welcome you on this Sunday noon in Toronto. It is cold here. I hope that wherever you are in the world watching this right now, you are doing well, you are happy, healthy, and willing and able to spend the next hour together. We are talking about judgment today. Judgment. Have you ever judged another? Why do we judge other people? Really, what are some real reasons behind our judgments? How does that affect us? And how do we ultimately get out of this habit? That is the topic of this week's Candid Conversations. This topic has been mulled over and talked about by so many different people, by psychologists, philosophers, thought leaders, and I want to dig a little today, not just to see what they have to say about this, but really to bring awareness to where we are in this, in our own lives, especially myself. Because anytime I choose a topic, it's because it resonates with me at that moment, at that time. And I feel as if it is needed to be discussed. So I'm hoping that you are going to find this as useful as I hope to find it. So I'm going to take a moment and read to you a definition for the word judgment. And just like any subject, I'd like to start there because knowing the real meaning of words, to me, that's a good place to start. So the word judgment, as defined, the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. That definition tells me that we need judgment in our lives. Don't you agree? That judgment is necessary if we're going to make the right decisions, if we're going to make sensible decisions to move forward one way or another. So, when does it become negative? And as we continue, I want you to consider this, that the word judgment has become a very negative concept. I think every time we talk about judgment, we pass judgment on our own judgment. So I want us to consider that judgment is necessary. The right judgment is necessary for us if we're going to live according to our values, according to our core beliefs. And so that is totally necessary. So let's continue. I personally am, I'm going to use the word guilty of judging others. I consider myself a good person. And I guess, however, no matter how good of a person you are, I bet you you have silently, in secret, have judged others at some point. And that's okay. That's not good or bad. I think we're just trying to make sense of it all and so see how it affects us. What are some reasons people judge others? And that's my question to you. As we go through these examples of how people judge others, I want you to consider whether you have or not this particular example, or what are your own examples of some ways you have judged others. And these examples I found on BuzzFeed as reported by other people. And I thought they were really amusing to some degree, but honestly, first of all, very honest answers and things that I think a lot of us can relate to. Um, so, have you ever judged anyone um, who's late? So, as a person who is fairly on time, now this is something my mom would probably disagree. I I tend to choose where I want to be on time and where it's not really necessary for me to be on time. But I think um, for the most part, I am punctual. I think I hold myself responsible to being on time uh, where it counts. Again, that's so subjective, right? And I tend to judge people who are late and who really don't care. Do you do that? Is that really important to you? Uh, these are things I've read on BuzzFeed. Someone else said, "I immediately judge you if you make fun of someone who's trying to do something, anything, whether they're singing or they're trying to sing, um, or maybe they're trying to dance." Are you one of those people who try to judge? And so, okay, so this is really funny because there are a lot of different shows who make money actually on this concept, right? There are shows like America's Got Talent, which is now worldwide, right? Or the X Factor, or some other talent shows. There are lots of talent shows who judge people based on what they're trying to do. So um, this happens all the time, right? Another one is someone had said, "I judge people based on their parking skills." Are you one of those people who watch another person park, and if they don't do a perfect parking job in between the lines on their first try, yeah, you judge them silently? Are you, or have you ever um, been to a supermarket and see someone parking their car and they leave their shopping cart right there, and you're thinking, oh boy, what if this cart rolled over someone's car? Are you one of those people? I, that just happened to me not too long ago. I'm just saying. Um, are you that person who judges others when they haven't wiped the toilet seat after they're done? Do you ever judge people who litter, who don't clean up after themselves? Um, do you ever judge someone who maybe doesn't tip the waitress or the waiter at the restaurant? Are you the type of person who judges people who are walking their dog and they don't pick up their dog poop? Do you call them a scumbag? Secretly, of course. Do you judge someone who you consider as having no knowledge of a certain topic, but they still try to argue with you, and you're thinking, you shouldn't be talking about things you don't know? Are you the type of person who judges people who are, let's say, in a multi level marketing business? And you're thinking to yourself, oh, you should know better. These are good examples. These are everyday examples, right? Do you ever judge people based on their parenting skills? Do you ever look at a family who's brought their kids to a certain situation and you're thinking, this is not a place for kids? Do you ever judge people based on how loud they talk on their phone? Do you judge people who chew with their mouth open? Do you judge people who don't wear shoes in a park? I think this one is really popular. Do you ever judge someone's driving skills? Do you ever judge a person who's turning a right turn or a left turn and they don't turn on their signal and thinking, "Oh, that's pretty arrogant." Do you ever judge people's relationships? You know, a husband and wife or a couple that you see and thinking, "Oh, she's so bossy," or "He's so bossy. He's so macho." Do you ever judge that relationship? Feel free to answer yes or no to any of these questions, by the way, in the chat, because it'd be interesting to see them. Do you ever judge someone who shuts down people who ask questions and they want to learn more? Do you ever judge those pedestrians who walk diagonally on the road or don't wait for their pedestrian signal? Do you ever judge those people who post political posts and you find them condescending? Do you ever judge those and thinking, oh, they should keep this to themselves? Do you ever judge people based on their name? Do you ever judge people based on what they wear? Do you ever judge a person when you're at the movie theater and they're playing on their phone or you feel like they're playing on their phone and thinking, "Well, I paid just as much as that person, and I need to be enjoying this movie, and that person needs to shut off their phone." Do you ever judge your coworker for being late? Do you ever judge people who you think should be washing their hands after using the bathroom? Do you ever judge people who start eating something in their cart while they're shopping? I'm telling you, these are everyday things that we see happen all the time. Do you ever judge? Do you ever judge people who complain about politics and governments and what's happening around them, but they choose not to vote? And you think, well, if you haven't voted, you have no right to complain. These are just some examples of things people have reported on judging at one point or another, secretly and silently. I want to tell you, okay, and if you've judged other people, there's no judgment here because I'm the first one to say that I have judged a lot, a lot, a lot, and so this is something that I try to be aware of on a daily basis. And honestly, it's really, really hard. It's hard to keep 100%. Tamara says, I am judging people, especially friends of mine, when they see my texts but do not reply to me right away. I think that's my problem, not them. Do you agree? I just read something about this, and this is so interesting that you say that because I really thought about this while I was researching for the show. I actually that was one of the places where the article started was that, we often in today's world, we judge someone based on how rapidly they reply to our text or to our message. And I'm guilty of that because when I text someone and I don't hear from them, and I should say my friend Colleen would say I used to. Uh, I used to do that more. Now I'm not so bad, but still gets to me. I'm just being honest. So when I don't hear back from that person, I make up stories in my own head. of why that person hasn't replied back. Did I do something? Did I, um, you know, are they on purpose ignoring me, or y- all the different reason of why um, that person hasn't texted me back, and in my own mind, I am um, blaming myself for every single one. And so this is what the article said, that we forget that people um, may have different reasons. They haven't checked their phone. I'm guilty of that. I have not. There's been times when I haven't checked my phone in 5 6 hours. Maybe they're out of battery. Maybe they're asleep. Maybe they are sick. Maybe they had an appointment. Maybe there are so many different reasons why this could happen. And so the sooner we accept those reasons as being the true reasons, the easier it is on us, because I know how uh, devastating those stories can be when we say those things to ourselves. Yes. Colleen says, yes, in the past, I may have. In the past, I may have. I still do. When we know better, we do better. Yes, truly, truly. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. So keep them coming. I'm asking you this, okay? Seriously, joking put aside, because we read all these different ways of how people judge one another. The danger is sometimes we become stuck. Sometimes we get stuck in that judgment mode, and that can be so harmful to ourselves more than anyone else. Because a lot of times we keep those judgments silent. Most of the time, we keep those judgments silent, and what it does to us is truly, truly harmful. But let's take a look at why we judge other people. The real reason of why we judge other people. And so this article was in Psychology Today. And so as I read it, it spoke to me. And I thought, this is so true. Judging others has nothing to do with the people we judge, but a lot to do with ourselves. When we judge other people's appearances, choices, behaviors, this is only a part of the picture. Passing this judgment usually is not aligned with who we truly are, with our real values, with our core beliefs, because by nature we are more inclusive and more compassionate than that. And we're social beings. So, why does this happen? It's about our unconscious mind. Let me explain. Let's say a child grows up in an environment, in a family, uh, where they weren't subject to unconditional love. So, this child grows up, and he unconsciously he has this idea that there is only so much of everything to go around. There's only so much attractiveness, there's only so much wealth, there's only so much youth, there's only so much beauty, there's only so much achievement, and ultimately there's only so much love. This is what we know as the lack consciousness, meaning that if someone else has something, then there's less for me. There's less to go around. That quantities are limited. If you have it, then I won't have it. And so this pushes us to see life as a ladder. Uh, Someone is always above us, and someone is always below us. Higher level, lower level. Two people can never occupy the same ladder rung. When we meet someone else, that someone is either better or worse than us. And of course, the metrics are different for different people, right? It could be wealth, status, social ability, appearances, abilities. But we keep doing it because that's what we believe. That's our paradigm. It becomes more about safety and survival because if you are the better person in a given scenario, then you don't have to worry that you might be the worst one, right? If you are then the better person, you don't have to suffer from feeling inferior, feeling shame, or feeling not good enough. And you have to keep going because there's this void and it cannot be filled with any amount of judgment because this isn't really what we need inside. This is like a temporary relief for something that is lacking. So we keep going. We judge another person. We judge another person. We judge another person. And we go around looking for the scumbags. We're looking for the drug dealers. We're looking for the criminals. We're looking for the extremists. We're looking for the lefties. We're looking for the righties. We're looking for the terrible mothers and the thoughtless husbands and the horrible drivers. So we look for them and we find them because finding them allows us to feel better about ourselves. Eventually, we're swimming in this cyst pool of judgment because we have invited that force into our lives. And now we have a hard time keeping our judgment to other people. And we end up judging ourselves even more harshly. And the sad part is that we used judgment as a way to boost our self-esteem, which now has become almost non-existent. I'm going to have a look at the comments and see what you got to say. Woo, there's so much here. Let me see. Thank you, by the way. I love reading these comments. And Connie says, yes, judgment says way more about ourselves than about the person we are judging. We always read this that people are mirrors. We see in other people the things that we see in ourselves, whether we consider them as good or bad. It doesn't matter. That's what we see in other people. Muhammad says, what should be the best mindset? Should we judge others? Our judgment is our perception, which may be wrong. As we move into this a little bit more, I think we're going to dig a little and we'll discuss all of these. But like I said, I don't think we need to consider our judgment as being bad or good, more as fair, I think. That's my take anyways, because we need our judging abilities if we're going to live uh, and make decisions. We need to be able to make decisions based on what we know, what we believe. Like you said, our perception is really, really comes into play when we need to make decisions. So we need that ability to judge. I think the problem arises when we make we pass an unjust judgment, whether it is on other people or ourselves. That's my take. Feel free to chime in with this. An abundance mindset. That's exactly my remedy for this, Mohammed. Exactly. Colleen says the mindset could be curiosity. Notice judgment of others and recognize that there is a lesson in there for you. How exciting! That is, yes, learning about ourselves is very exciting. Colleen says we all do the best we can with the information we have at the time. What if we accept that we are all equal? That's exactly it. So when I look at that ladder analogy, I feel like the best place would be for all of us to get together at the bottom of the ladder and be in a community, um, and see one another and learn from one another. And your strengths can teach me, and uh, your flaws can teach me the same way my flaws and my strengths can teach you. And this would be ideal, wouldn't it? It all starts with us, I think. And that's why talking about things like this is so important, because it brings awareness, right? We're not judging one another. We're really looking deep inside. Yeah. Wouldn't isn't it lovable, special, brilliant? Yes, absolutely. The phone lines are open. I'm going to post the number here. You can call the show and participate. I would love to hear from you, because your voice is really needed on the show. So phone line is open. You can call the show at 1-647-283-6571. If you happen to be on Messenger, you can also call the show on Messenger, on the Messenger line, and I will answer. In another article, I read this, that our judgments say so much about us. And so, uh, psychological research has shown that when it comes to social judgment, um, we don't see the we don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. And so this quote is actually by a writer from, I want to say, from Cuba, Anais Nin. I think she was from Cuba, and she was the first woman writer, and she that wrote erotic um, novels. And so she said, "We don't see things as they are; we see them as we are." And that rings true for me, and I don't know if it does for you, but certainly I can relate to that. And so, um, the way we evaluate others is is not just a function of their objective characteristics. It's also a reflection of our own vantage point, of our own perception, of our own from our own paradigm, which is shaped by um, which is shaped by our life experiences, our goals and values, as well as our hidden desires and fears. And the things that we criticize and praise most in other people tell us not only about them, but about us, and sometimes in surprising ways. So, Deborah, you're on the air.
Hi, beautiful. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing amazing. Happy Sunday, everyone.
Happy Sunday to you. Thanks for calling the show. And I hope people can hear you. I'm sure people can hear you. But if you can hear Deborah, please drop a yes in the comment section so that we can keep going.
Perfect. I just wanted to say, I love this topic because I think what happened with myself is I've always been almost a little OCD and a little anal as far as everything needs to be right in my life. And what I've done, through the years, maybe in my 20s and 30s, is very judgmental of others because it's what I expected. And it took me until my 50s and now in my 60s to understand what I expect and do for myself, I should not expect others. It was a hard pill to swallow because I grew up in a family that pretty much we were all the same way. What we said we did, when we said we would be somewhere, we would be somewhere. And it was a big letdown to realize the world is not like that. And the more frustrated I would get with myself because someone would let me down, wasn't that they were letting me down, but I took it that way because they weren't doing it my way. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense to me. It does.
Yeah. And that's what I think created the judgment in myself. And of course, I think we all do it. I think if somebody says, I don't judge ever, I think consider yourselves Jesus Christ and God bless you.
You're a saint.
Because
You're a saint. And I
absolutely.
want to be like you.
Yes, exactly. Teach me, show
Yeah.
me. But it's how we do it, how we catch ourselves in the process of it, because I will now do it and then I'm like, okay, wait, I got to step back and I got to realize this is how I would react. I can't expect them to react that way. And it's been quite liberating being able to let it go. But I still have problems with, the biggest problem I have is people that speak behind each other's backs.
Mhm.
And as soon as I get dragged into it, I pull myself out right away. And yes, you're right, you can get dragged into it. But I always feel like, well, if they're talking about them to me, they're going to talk about me to them.
You're so
So
right.
yes, those are the people I don't need to be associating with. And
Yeah.
if they're business people, you just don't get too close. But it's a liberating thing when you can realize why you're judgmental, because then you'll start correcting it.
Yes.
That's all I have to say.
So I wanted to ask you a question. What did you think of when I said, well, we need our judgment?
I think in some sense we do, because it makes me grow. When I judge somebody else, I grow. I become more tolerant of myself, and I understand people better. It makes me, but I do need my judgment. I do, because it also protects me from, like I was saying, people that are love to talk about other people's business in front of people. It's a warning sign.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, let's say you're on the road and you see this car, this driver all of a sudden pull in front of you. I mean, that moment, you don't necessarily have to say, "You bastard," but at the same time, you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, like, do I do that?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, my husband would be the type to say, "Well, you bastard," and the finger flip and the whole works. But he's learned in this day and age you don't do that, because the person you're flipping off that cut you off could turn around, follow you, and decide they're going to blow your head off. So
Oh,
the
darn it.
it's so true.
It happens.
I've heard stories. There was a story here locally where a guy was cut off, or he cut somebody off accidentally. He pulled off right away, and he said, I rolled my window down and I yelled, I'm sorry, because I knew I cut him off. He said, well, the guy flipped me off. And understandably, because I cut him off, he says, but then I found myself judging him for not accepting my apology, and I flicked him off. The guy got back behind him. He followed him off the ramp, and he was shooting at the car.
Oh, man. That
Yeah,
that's just
yeah,
that's just gone wrong.
that's way gone wrong. That's why I said being judgmental is good in a way, because you'll realize, hey, that I don't want to do that,
Yes.
and I've learned a lot from me being very judgmental of people, and it's made me very much more tolerant of people, because I can't expect them to react the way I would. See, I'm perfect.
Right? And so, okay, so let me ask you this. If could you give us a couple of tools that you use all the time to remind yourself how to not be that
Oh,
person?
I always stop and don't react. and breathe and then put myself in their shoes. And I've taught my kids that, sometimes you need to step back and put yourself in their shoes and think what they could be doing. What are they feeling? What have they done? What kind of day have they had? And, could you change this whole scenario by, instead of judging them and being bitter and reactive, how about just a smile and say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overstep, or something like that. Just My kids are so amazing that way. They have gotten to where people respect them. And this was in high school because of the way they would react and stop and think. And they'd say to me, Mom, I realized, I got so mad and I could have reacted that way. And then I thought what you said, maybe that person didn't have breakfast. Maybe they don't have parents who gave them a hug on the way home and they didn't have lunch to bring. And so that's what I do. I always stop, breathe, and think.
Uh, there's a I don't know if it's a prayer. I think it is. God, let me not judge another person unless I have walked in their shoes. Something like this.
Yes,
Have you heard this before?
yes.
I
And
think.
and
Mhm.
that's so true, because we don't know what they've gone through. And, and I always used to tell my kids too, it's like, it's easier to make somebody's day good than add to their bad.
But I like that. It's easier
Yeah.
to make
And
somebody's day good. Yes.
yeah, to their bad.
Better.
And my daughter used to see this one girl getting teased all the time on the bus, and she got off one day, 12 years old, so upset because she didn't do anything. And she goes, but I felt like I should be part of it because all my friends were teasing her. And this girl had really weird looking hair and she was heavy and she's new to the school. And I said, well, don't you think you could stop it by maybe just saying hi to her and welcome and maybe sit next to her? I said, you're popular in school, sweetie. People would respect that. And she did. And the next day she got off the bus and she goes, everybody was nice to her.
Ah,
So easier to make somebody's day.
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you, my
Yeah.
friend. Thanks so much for your input and sharing your experience with us. And I love you.
You so welcome. And I love you. Great show as always.
Thank
Take care,
you.
everybody. Have a blessed Sunday.
Bye. Um, Thank you, Deborah. I love it when I get phone calls. I do. So, here are 5 research findings that shed light on the connection between social judgment and me, myself, as a person. So, when I judge others, what does this mean to me? What does it mean about me? So, some people see the world and other people through rose colored glasses. And that could be me. I tend to think that way. If you're that kind of a person, you might be in um, kind of so what do they call it? An agreeableness, I guess. A personality trait that's like more warm and kind, and you're more empathetic. And so, not surprisingly, agreeable people are more likely to view others and the world more positively. And they focus on the good qualities of other people. And you give people the benefit of the doubt when they behave badly. Um, this sort of people sometimes are called the Pollyannas, and I've been accused of that a couple of times, this Pollyanna attitude. And danger is that it could be blinding because if you're always seeing everything rosy, your perspective could be flawed. Um, because you may be reluctant to voice your concerns about problems and behaviors for fear of hurting other people, because we might also tend to be people pleasers. And so we may experience some sort of stress as a result of what is happening inside of us and what is happening on the outside. They're not really aligned, so we might feel a little bit of stress. So that's a danger of that. If Oh, I've got a call. Let's see. Hello, Colleen. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I love this subject. Thank you for talking about this.
Of course. And you are so good at it too. Like, you're so good at explaining this. And for everybody who's listening to you, Colleen, tell everybody what you do for a living.
Well, I am a coach, and I focus a lot on relationships. So
Great. Okay, tell us your bit.
so I put a comment in the thread, but I thought that maybe if you wanted to elaborate on it, that might be helpful. So I had a client that had a judgment about somebody at work. She had been short with her. She had and so she had jumped to a bunch of conclusions about that she was not friendly, that she was not that she just didn't like her, and made all these judgments based on her one interaction. So I asked her to consider if that person had just found out some really bad news about someone they loved or about themselves or whatever it might be. I said, would you jump to that conclusion, or could you find compassion in your heart for that person? And she said, oh, of course I would have compassion. And I said, what if you just go straight to compassion?
Wouldn't that be lovely? I think we can all benefit from that, right? I think this would work in a lot of situations when we tend to judge others harshly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of the examples you gave, the person that cuts you off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if instead of saying, you just cut me off, what if you went straight to, oh my goodness, they need to get somewhere so quickly? Like, it could be anything. We don't know. We don't know what's in their mind. We don't know what's happening with them. So if we can just jump to, you know what, they need to be somewhere fast. And I've had situations where I needed to be somewhere fast, and I might have cut some people off on my way.
Yes.
Like, and if you go through all of the examples that you listed, just changing that perspective of going straight to compassion
Yes. What if?
change our reaction,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And thinking about this, like, reverse it. What if I was that person?
Yeah,
How would
and
I
that's what Deborah was saying. Yes.
Mhm. How would I want that other person to think of me, and what would I want them to say about me? How much compassion would I expect from other people?
Yeah.
This reminds me of a story, and I don't know if you heard it or not. Dr. Wayne Dyer told this story, and he was talking about a trip that he was on an airplane with this man and his kids who were misbehaving, and they were screaming and crying and yelling and running up and down the aisles, and it was just driving all the other passengers crazy. And the man just seemed so oblivious to this situation, the father. So he was sitting in his chair, and he had closed his eyes, and he just didn't care. It looked like he didn't care. And meanwhile, excuse me, his kids are driving all the passengers nuts, and the hostess, the air. Oh my gosh, what do you call them now? What is that?
Flight attendant.
Thank you, flight attendants. Oh my gosh, that's so bad. Flight attendants. They were driving the flight attendants crazy, and at some point, um, Wayne Dyer turns to the guy and say, the your kids are making the other passengers uncomfortable. Um, maybe is there any way you could just tell them to sit down? And the guy opens his eyes and he says, "Oh, man, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize we just um, are going home, flying home. Their mother um, passed at the hospital from cancer, and so the kids are upset, and he was upset, and so how often can we miss something like that, right?
Yeah. There,
Yeah.
there's always stuff going on in people's minds that we're not aware of.
Yes.
And if we remember that, then I think it's easier to be compassionate about what they're going.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, thank you. That was great input. I mean, I such a great way to change the story.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Colleen, how can
Yeah.
people get in touch with you?
Um, I can, they can send me an email, Colleen at personalgrowthservices.ca. And yeah, I'd love to chat about this stuff. So
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you.
thank you,
Great
Della.
coach. Thank you. Great input.
Thank you.
Have a lovely
Bye.
day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Um, so we were talking about what does when we judge other people, what does that say about us? And the first one was if you tend to see people through rose-colored glasses, you tend to also see other people's um, positive points and the positive points in people and other situations. The next is if you cannot stand narcissists. So if this is funny. This is all psychology. Excuse me. You're less likely to be narcissistic yourself if you cannot stand narcissists. But if narcissistic behavior doesn't bother you, then you're more likely to have narcissistic characteristics. Oh, say that 3 times. We tend to like people who are similar to us. So, narcissists who appear to have some awareness of their own narcissism may view other narcissists as kindred spirits. The researchers say, or um, that these people either consider them as kindred spirits or they respect their dominant personalities. However, if the fellow narcissist represents a threat or source of competition, then this might be a different story. So consider this if you notice other narcissistic behavior. The third one is if you judge someone else's personality based on a single event, on a single behavior. And we may do that. We pass judgment on people's situations and things it may be based on one single event. And so if that's you, then you're more likely to have an independent model of yourself, which emphasizes autonomy and internal motivation. Uh, by contrast, then, people who don't link behavior and personality as strongly are more likely to have an interdependent model of the self, which emphasizes social roles and context. This says a lot. If you yourself judge a person by single behavior or single event, then you know this about yourself, that you are an independent. You have an independent model of yourself as opposed to interdependent. Of course, a lot of people fall in between independent and interdependent, seeing behavior as influenced by both traits and situations. Um, I mean, it's not that one perspective is more valid than the other, but we tend to lean. But I think it's good to know which way we lean, right? And this is how we notice this about ourselves. If you meet someone and all of a sudden just have this dislike for this person, this irrational dislike. You know how sometimes you meet someone and you're like, "Ah, I just don't like him or her," right? It may have happened to you. Has it happened to you? This is my question to you. If that has happened to you, where you irrationally dislike someone, it could be because you feel envious or threatened by their success. And so this happens a lot in the celebrity world where you see, this actress or this actor getting or singer or any celebrity getting hate mail, for no reason at all. And studies show that people are more likely to negatively evaluate successful outgroup members when their own self-esteem is threatened. And the mere act of giving a negative evaluation can temporarily boost self-esteem. If you're on if you do anything public at all, on social media or anything like this, you may have encountered this, where for some reason you get this one person who sends a comment, and it could be just nasty, and for no reason at all. They may have said something and you're like, why? What did I do? But this could be the reason. Um, Another way to know yourself is if you're critical of someone who has a different lifestyle than yours. And this might indicate that you have underlying doubts about your own lifestyle. This is really, really powerful. There's nothing wrong with celebrating our lives, our own lives. But um, when celebrating turns into looking down on other people because their lifestyle is different, this suggests that we're not being totally honest with ourselves in some way. Um, Often it's simply that we're struggling to acknowledge trade offs and could benefit from embracing the reality that all paths have their ups and downs, and that people are different in what works best for their personality, um, and their own personal lives. So their lifestyles tend to be different because we're different. But sometimes um, over idealization indicates that there's something serious going on. There's serious doubts that deserve closer attention. Um, and we need to address those. And this is where acceptance comes into play. A lot of times we're in denial of what doesn't work in our own lives. And so we just keep ignoring it. And by accepting, we can um, take a step towards change. And then we can ask help. We can ask for help from someone like Colleen, and try and see what doesn't work. If it doesn't work, change it. If it works, maybe use more of it. And that's when a coach comes in handy. Let me have a look in the comments section. Um, Repeat the prayer, Muhammad says. Um, well, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's something really close to this. Uh, God, help me Um, help me not help me not judge another person unless I have walked in their shoes, or something to that effect. I'm sorry. But if someone knows this best, please drop it in the chat. Um, Mohammed says, so empathy and sympathy should be our attitude. Maybe not sympathy, but as I'd say empathy. Definitely that to me is more aligned with compassion. Uh, and Colleen says, yes, I am not fond of the word should. I believe that we choose consciously or unconsciously our responses. And so could would be more appropriate. Would you agree? Absolutely. Yeah, you shouldn't ever should on yourself or on other people. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. Uh, Colleen also says comparison and judgment are close cousins in that they both highlight our own insecurities. Definitely. And so, if anything, I think comparison, I think comparing ourselves to ourselves works for me. Comparing myself to the version of me that was, um, say, yesterday or a month ago, or for me, in my case, there's a big difference between the person I am today and the person I was, let's say, 4 years ago. Comparing myself to that and seeing the big picture and seeing how far I've come, because often we can get bogged down by where we're not. If I haven't accomplished my goal, if I haven't this many subscribers, if I haven't this many viewers, I haven't this many likes, then I'm not successful, because we can get stuck in that mindset. But instead, looking at the big picture and reminding ourselves that um, the journey is what's important. That I'm living what I always wanted to live. This is um, a step in the right direction, looking for progress rather than perfection. And these all help us move away from that lack mindset into and towards the abundance mindset. And I mean, these are all so interrelated, right? In the beginning of the show, we started talking about the lack mindset, and that's I think maybe this is where we'll end the show. How do we develop this abundant mindset? I think for me, one of the first ones is to there are so many. There's so many different ways I'm constantly working on this. But one of the best ones is collaboration. And I think Colleen talked about this, rather than better than me or worse than me together, collaborating, finding the people who are of mind like, uh, and helping each other succeed. And also celebrating who the people who are not of mind likes, because we can always learn from one another. Another tool for me has been gratitude attitude. That always comes in handy. Gratitude attitude always comes in handy. Because whenever I concentrate on what I'm grateful for, I see all the blessings in my life. And that always moves me towards an abundant mindset, away from what is missing in my life. And when I'm not looking at what's missing in my life, I'm not judging myself and I'm not comparing myself to other people. Those have been amazing tools for me. Also, celebrating other people's achievements. um, that has also helped me. Looking at other people who are probably in the same maybe in the same line of work as me, but also um, more successful, and celebrating them, celebrating their achievements, acknowledging their successes, and um, congratulating them from an honest place. And who knows, maybe at first you have to force yourself to do that because you're not used to that mindset. But eventually it becomes a part of who you are, celebrating other people, because um, when you're truly happy for other people's successes, for their achievements, for their accomplishments, um, you are opening yourselves up to receiving more of the same good feeling, abundant um, blessings. Whatever you're celebrating, whatever you're noticing, is what comes back to you. I truly believe that. Isn't that the law of attraction at work? That's so. Those are some of the things that have helped me to move away from um, that lack mindset, and it has helped me tremendously to be less judgmental of other people. And the best way to move away from judgmental attitude is to accept people for who they are. Uh, Everybody's different. We're all different. We all have different backgrounds, different cultures, different families where we grew up. We definitely see the world differently. We all have our own paradigms, our own perspective, our own beliefs. Uh, if I accept you for who you are, not expecting you to change to make me happier, if you accept me for who I am, not expecting me to change so that you can be happier, then this can be a really good world to live in. Is this is this a simplistic mind? I don't know, maybe, but I truly believe that that is possible, but it starts with me right here, right now. And so, with you on here on Della's Voice, I think that you're ready to also move towards that. So I hope this hour together has sparked something. And so, if it has, I hope that it may be beneficial to you. I hope that it has brought some awareness. I hope that it will be a step towards the right direction. And if it is, let me know in the comments after the show. Drop me a line. Say, Della, what you said was full of bull, and I will not buy any of it. Or, Della, what you talked about today uh, is of benefit, so that we can make more of these shows and talk more about stuff like this. So, thank you so much for being on here. Let me have a look at the comments and see what else there is on here. Oh, Jack is here also. Thank you, Jack, for being here. I thought it said that you cannot pass judgment until you have walked a mile in the other person's shoes. Thank you. See, that's it. That's the quote. Until you have walked a mile in the other shoes. Thank you, Jack. I was trying to think of it. Um, Colleen says, yes, recognizing your own accomplishments and development is important along the way. Absolutely. Mohammed says, win-win situation. Yes. And sometimes it's win-win-win and win. Win for me, win for you, win for everybody, and win for future. I call it a quadruple win. Sarah says, is thinking about the behavior and reaction of others also a form of judgment? I think if you're thinking about it, it means that you're You're trying to make sense of it. The judgment is when can you make that as good or bad. And here's another thing. I really think this is really important. Judging a behavior, I think is okay as long as it doesn't affect the way we judge that person. The person. We're not judging the person. We're seeing the action or the words, the behavior, and we're judging that, but we're not judging the person because that does not define that person. What do you think? Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? What do you think of that? Jack says, being in management most of my life, I am in the judgment business. We judge when we interview people. We judge when performance reviews. We judge all the time. Yes, and you would, wouldn't you? Uh, like uh, like we said as a part of the show, that we all need to be able to make judgments. I think judgment has gotten a bad rap because we always associate it with this negative connotation of judging other people. Um, but yes, you're right. We need to be able to judge situations to make the better decisions. I totally agree with you, Jack. Okay. Well, thank you. Mohammed says it was beneficial, Della. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on here today. The I picked the topics of the shows based on what is really resonating with me in that moment, and not in the moment because I choose the topic before, but based on what's going on in my own life and what I'm living, what experiences I'm having. And hopefully you also relate to these topics, and we can all benefit from these. Thank you again for spending the past hour with me. I am totally blessed to have this platform where I can show up here once a week and spend this time with you. Please do share this with other people if you found it beneficial. And also remember to subscribe to Della's Voice channel to help me get this message out to more people. Have a blessed day, everybody. Until next time, this was Della's Voice, sparking your soul.